Battle of Wood Lake, September 23, 1862. There was no battle at the town of Wood Lake. The battle occurred at Lone Tree Lake, several miles from Wood Lake. Again, with the wise use of cannon and howitzers, Colonel Sibley won a decisive victory over Little Crow's warriors. As a result of this battle, Colonel Sibley was appointed to the rank of Brigadier General in the Union Army. The Indian expedition now became part of the Civil War under the command of President Abraham Lincoln. Camp Release, September 26, 1862. After his defeat at Wood Lake, Little Crow moved his camp and his hostages to a site on the Lac-qui-Parle River near Montevideo. Colonel Sibley pursued him, and on September 26th, he boldly marched into Little Crow's camp. Little Crow had escaped to the west with those warriors still loyal to him. All that was left at the camp were the hostages, mostly women and children who had been severely abused, and a few Indian warriors and their families. There was no battle. The Indians surrendered and turned their hostages over to Sibley. Sibley rounded up all warriors suspected of committing atrocities in the massacre and appointed a military commission to try them. This took several weeks. With winter coming on, Sibley left the prairie and moved with his soldiers and Indian prisoners to South Bend, near Mankato. There they tried the remaining accused Indians, and 303 were sentenced to death by hanging. All the evidence was submitted to President Abraham Lincoln for his review. President Lincoln pardoned or commuted the death sentence on all but 38 of the 303 condemned Indians and ordered that they be executed by hanging at Mankato on December 26, 1862, the day after Christmas. My great-great-uncle, Matthias Ullman, couldn't be happier. He owned and operated the Union House Hotel on North Front Street between Elm and Spring Streets. News of the mass execution spread throughout the land and brought a crowd to Mankato estimated at 4,000 by Harper's Weekly. They needed lodging, and great-great-uncle Matthias undoubtedly did a booming business that December. The execution was carried out as ordered, and all 38 Sioux warriors died by hanging at the same time on a huge gallows that was built in town. This execution was and still remains the largest mass execution in the history of the United States, and it happened in Mankato, Minnesota. The executed Indians were not destined to rest in peace. The Army dug a trench in a sandbar on the nearby Minnesota River, where they buried the bodies immediately after the execution. Less than 24 hours later, members of the medical community, led by W. Mayo of Le Sueur, dug up the corpses and sold them to medical schools for dissection. This prompted Lauren Boutine, author of the book Cut Nose, to state, "There is some irony in the fact that while alive, these Indians were considered by many to be subhuman, but now, in death, they were deemed to be acceptable for use as human cadavers." The fate of Little Crow. Little Crow returned to Minnesota even though the government put a bounty on him. On July 3, 1863, while he was picking berries outside of Hutchinson, he was shot dead by Chauncey Lamson, a farmer out rounding up his cows. The following day, the 4th of July, his body was dragged through the streets of Hutchinson and used for sport. The body was severely mutilated as the highlight of the 4th of July celebration. Since the government had placed a bounty on him, his scalp and arm bones were then taken as trophies and placed on public display in the Minnesota Historical Society in St. Paul. This behavior has caused future generations of both races to question who was the greater savage, for neither the Indian nor the white race acted very civilized during this dark period in Minnesota history. Thus ended yet another sad chapter in the ongoing saga of man's inhumanity to his fellow man. What you just heard happened in Minnesota during the Civil War year of 1862.